everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. My name is Veronica, and in today's video I'm going to be sharing the recipes to some of my family's favorite Thanksgiving sides and desserts. Today's video is very special. It's a part of a Friendsgiving collab hosted by Sammi from over at Managing the Maze. I will link Sammy's channel as well as the playlist to the collab below in my description box, so make sure that you go check that out and get some wonderful, delicious ideas for Thanksgiving. I am so honored to be a part of this Friendsgiving collab, and I also want to say a big thank you to Sammi for hosting. Let's get to cooking and baking. First up, I'm going to show you how I make one of my family's favorite Thanksgiving sides, broccoli casserole. I start off by cooking one bag of chopped broccoli according to the package directions. And whenever my broccoli is finished cooking, I take that and drain all of the water off of it. And then I pour my drained broccoli into a large bowl. This recipe has been passed down in my family for generations, and it is a tradition in my family that we make this broccoli casserole for every holiday as a side dish, and it's also good as a main dish if you want to double this recipe. I then add in a medium diced up sweet onion, a half of a cup of mayonnaise, half of a can of cream of mushroom soup, 1 egg, one cup of shredded mild cheddar cheese, and then I stir all of those ingredients together to make sure everything is well combined. And then I pour all of those ingredients into an 8x8 baking dish, and then I spread that in there evenly. I then take a roll of either Ritz crackers or Toll House crackers, whichever one I have on hand. Both of them work great, and I pour them into a sandwich bag, and I crush those up with my hand, and I pour those on top of my broccoli casserole and spread those on there evenly. After I get my topping added, I then place it in the oven that I had preheated to 350 degrees, and I bake it for 30 minutes. And this is what the broccoli casserole looks like whenever it comes out of the oven. And here it is on my plate. My all-time favorite side, my famous sweet potato casserole. I start off by adding a 40-ounce can of Bruce's yams into a large pot, and I let that heat up until it comes to a boil, and then I let that boil for 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, I then drain the liquid off, and then I take a hand masher and mash the yams up. This time I completely forgot to mash the yams up until I added my other ingredients, but they still turned out good. And after I get them mashed up, I then add in a third of a cup of butter, 2 large eggs, 1 cup of granulated sugar, 1/3 of a cup of milk, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And here's whenever I realized that I forgot to mash my yams up, which was completely fine. This ended up helping me in the long run because I had to mix everything together anyway. So after I got all of my yams mashed up, I then just gave it a good stir just to make sure everything was thoroughly combined. After everything is mixed up, I then spray a small baking dish with some nonstick spray, or you can use an 8x8 baking dish, and then I pour all of those ingredients into my baking dish and then just spread them in there evenly. I then start preparing my sweet potato casserole topping. In a bowl, I have 1/3 of a cup of melted butter. I then add in 1/3 of a cup of flour, 1 cup of packed light brown sugar, and 1 cup of chopped pecans, or if you call them pecans, add in your pecans. And then I mix everything together until everything is thoroughly combined. I then spoon my topping all over the top of my sweet potato casserole. After I get all of my topping added, I then place it in the oven that I had preheated to 375 degrees, and I bake it for 40 minutes or until a knife inserted comes out clean. And here's my sweet potato casserole, fresh out of the oven. Chocolate truffle pie, a super easy dessert for Thanksgiving. For this dessert, I use a store-bought chocolate cookie pie crust, but you can make a homemade pie crust if you prefer. It's just a lot easier to use the store-bought, especially during Thanksgiving, whenever you're trying to cook and bake a whole lot of other things. I start off by adding 2 cups of semi-sweet chocolate chips and 3/4 of a cup of heavy whipping cream to a bowl, and I just mix that together a little bit, and then I microwave it in 30-second increments until the chocolate is melted, and I can stir that and all of that is nice and smooth. And then whenever the chocolate is melted and it's nice and smooth, I let that cool to room temperature, and I just stir it every couple of minutes until it has cooled off. This dessert is best whenever you make it the day before Thanksgiving, so if you do decide to make this, just keep that in mind. Whenever that has cooled off, I then add in 1 tablespoon of vanilla extract and 1/4 of a cup of sifted powdered sugar, and then I just stir everything together to make sure that is well combined. I then just set my chocolate mixture to the side, and in my stand mixer, I add in 3/4 of a cup of heavy whipping cream, and I turn my mixer on high until my heavy whipping cream forms soft peaks. If you don't have a stand mixer, you can also use a hand mixer. And then whenever that has formed the soft peaks, I then add in a little bit of my chocolate mixture at a time. Then I turn my mixer on until I've got all of my chocolate mixture added, and that's nice and smooth and well combined. This is a delicious, rich chocolate truffle pie. It's great for Thanksgiving because you can make it the day before. And if you don't like traditional Thanksgiving desserts like pumpkin pie, or you're just tired of eating the same things every year and you want something different, this is a great option. Once I get my pie filling done, I then pour all of that into my pie crust, and then I cover my pie crust and I stick it in the refrigerator for at least 8 hours for that to set up, and then I will show you my toppings next. After the pie has set in the refrigerator for at least 8 hours and the chocolate has set up, it's ready to serve. And right before I serve my pie, I like to top it with a little bit of whipped topping in the center of the pie, and I also sprinkle some chocolate shavings on top. And here's my slice of pie. I added some more whipped topping to the top of mine and a few extra chocolate shavings as well. I'm going to show you how I make one of our favorite fall cakes that is perfect for a Thanksgiving dessert. I start off by adding 2 cups of sifted flour into a large bowl. I then add in 2 teaspoons of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of salt, 1½ teaspoons of ground cinnamon, and 2 teaspoons of pumpkin pie spice. Once I get all of my dry ingredients added to my bowl, I then just whisk all of that together to make sure all of the dry ingredients are well combined. Once I get all of my dry ingredients mixed together, I just place that bowl to the side, and in a separate bowl, I start working on my other ingredients. I start off by adding 1 cup of vegetable oil. I then add in 4 large eggs, 1 cup of packed light brown sugar, 1/2 cup of granulated sugar, 1 15-ounce can of pumpkin puree, and 1½ teaspoons of pure vanilla extract. And then I whisk all of those ingredients together until everything is completely combined. After I get those ingredients mixed together, I pour those ingredients in with my dry ingredients, and then I take my whisk and I whisk all of those ingredients together until everything is thoroughly combined. If you have a mixer, you can use your mixer or you can use a whisk, either one, whichever way you prefer. This cake batter is a little bit thicker than normal cake batter, so if you do make this, then you will notice that the cake batter is a little bit thicker, and that's completely fine. I then spray a 9x13 baking dish with some Baker's Joy. I then pour my cake batter into my baking dish, and then I just spread my cake batter in there evenly. I then place it in the oven that I had preheated to 350 degrees, and I bake it for 30 minutes or until a toothpick comes out clean. And this is what the pumpkin cake looks like whenever it comes out of the oven, and I let it cool completely before I start making my cream cheese frosting. For my cream cheese frosting, I start off by adding a stick of room temperature butter into my stand mixer and an 8-ounce block of cream cheese softened to room temperature as well. I then turn my mixer on high speed and cream the two together until they are nice and creamy. If you don't have a stand mixer, that's completely fine. You can use a hand mixer as well. When the butter and cream cheese are smooth and creamy, I then add in a teaspoon of pure vanilla extract and 3 cups of sifted powdered sugar. If you are using unsalted butter, you would also need to add in an 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. I then turn my stand mixer on low speed for 30 seconds, and then I switch it to high speed for 2 minutes. If you would like your frosting to be a little bit thicker, you could add in an extra 1/4 of a cup of sifted powdered sugar. I then frost my completely cooled cake with my frosting. I just add my frosting on top of my cake and just spread that on there evenly. After I get all of my cream cheese frosting added, I then stick it in the refrigerator for at least 30 minutes, and then it's ready to serve. And here's a slice of my pumpkin cake with cream cheese frosting. This cake is delicious and it makes a great Thanksgiving dessert. That's it for today's video. I hope that you all enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you all have a great day.